BBC News at 1 is next, and stay with us at 2 for Afternoon Live with all the top stories, weather, business and sport.
Stories set to shape the news agenda. Headlines freshly written. Original perspectives on the day's unfolding narratives. See the bigger picture as it emerges. The Papers, weeknights at 10:40 on the BBC News Channel.
Theresa May announces plans to boost Britain's investment in Africa post-Brexit. In her first trip to the continent as Prime Minister, she's promised £4 billion in support for African economies, creating jobs for the young.
I want the UK to be the G7's #1 investor in Africa, with Britain's private sector companies taking the lead in investing the billions that will see African economies growing by trillions.
As she's critiqued for her dance floor diplomacy, the Prime Minister played down warnings from the Chancellor here about the economic damage a no-deal Brexit could cause. We'll have the very latest from her first stop, South Africa, shortly. Also this lunchtime. Police appealed for the public to help find a 21-year-old man, Jambaz Charin, over the stabbings of his former partner and her mother. Rallies will be held in Northern Ireland later to demand the restoration of devolved government at Stormont. And the conservationists have come up with an innovative plan to try to combat the plastic pollution washing up on our coastlines.
And coming up on BBC News, pressure mounting on Manchester United manager Jose Mourinho, who stormed out of a post-match news conference after a sobering 3-0 defeat at home to Tottenham.
Hello, very good afternoon. Welcome to the BBC News at 1. The Prime Minister has called for a new partnership between the UK and Africa. She hopes to strengthen ties as Britain prepares to leave the EU. Speaking in Cape Town at the start of 17 minutes then past 1, and our main story this lunchtime. Theresa May has announced plans to boost Britain's investment in Africa post-Brexit. In her first trip to the continent as Prime Minister, she's promised £4 billion of support for economies there. And coming up, Strictly Come Dancing returns next month with contestants gathering last night for its launch.
And coming up on BBC News, Andy Murray's confident his hip can hold out after winning through to the second round of the US Open by beating James Duckworth in 4 sets.
Children as young as 10 trying to kill themselves, intolerable conditions and horrific violence. This is, say aid workers, what life looks like inside a European refugee camp. The BBC's been given rare access to Moria camp on the Greek island of Lesbos. Workers for the charity MSF say it's the worst refugee camp on earth. It has a capacity for around 2,000 refugees, yet houses 4 times that number. On the day the BBC was given access, 2 people were stabbed. Our reporter, Katrin.
Clouds, certainly for the next day or so. That is all from me for now. I'll hand you back to Kate.
Thank you. Lovely to see you. Before we leave you, a reminder of our main story this lunchtime. Theresa May has announced plans to boost Britain's investment in Africa post-Brexit. In her first trip to the continent as Prime Minister, she promised £4 billion of support for economies there. That's all from the BBC News at 1. Goodbye from me on BBC One. We'll join the news teams where you are. Bye-bye.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Damian Johnson. It's 1:30 and here are the latest sports headlines. Jose Mourinho has demanded respect as pressure mounts on his position following Manchester United's humbling 3-0 home defeat by Spurs.